Hello and welcome to the Laois Today preview of this year's Joe McDonagh hurling final. Laois are in the Joe McDonagh Cup final on Sunday in Croke Park. They're taking on Westmeath. We're here in the Joe Mallon Renault and Dacia dealership on the Abbey Leaks Road in Portlaoise, and I'm joined by Jack Nolan, Midlands 103 commentator, by Tommy Buggy, a man with huge experience in the game both locally with clubs in Laois and in his native Kilkenny, and by Darren Maher, a three-time senior hurling club medal winner with Balacolla and former Laois player for the best part of 10 years. So lads, you're very welcome. Thanks for joining us. Darren, I'm going to start with you first. You, as just referenced, you played with Laois for the best part of 10 years. You played minor and under 21. You were on teams that, under Cheddar, I suppose you had a good spell under Niall Rigney, and that you were always competing at the top level. You know, you were playing the Galways, the Limericks, Kilkennys, these top sides. With Laois in the final in the lower tier of the competition on Sunday, do you ever sort of regret that maybe you didn't get a day like that? Or
I think, like, for every young lad that ever picked up a hurl, you know, the dream is always to go to play in Croke Park, and if you could lift a bit of silverware in Croke Park, you know, you're going to surpass all your dreams. So I think from that point of view, you know, you definitely would love to get that chance. But that being said, you got to play against the best players in the country, the likes of Dan Shanahan, Joe Canning, Sean O'Galpine, like, you know, there's pros and cons for both sides, you know. So, like, but overall, like, the aim for the Laois hurlers is to get out of Joe McDonagh by winning it. So, you know, while they're down there, you know, they have that opportunity to get to play in Croke Park, and hopefully they do, and do fairly well on Sunday. But at the end of it, these players want to be playing at the top level. So while they don't want to be down there, there is a big carrot at the end of the year now, and hopefully it'll pan out on Sunday.
It is a nice opportunity. Like, it's going to be 60,000 in Croke Park on Sunday for the second game, the Wexford Kilkenny game. It's an experience. Like, you never got to play in Croke Park for the Laois hurlers. Like,
no.
it's not something a lot of Laois guys have done in the last couple of decades.
I was saying they were talking about with I was the minors in 2005, and we played Antrim in a practice match up in Dublin, and that was before Laois were playing Wexford. You probably remember, Jack, in Damien Cullen got a great goal in 2005. That was the last time a Laois senior team, hurling team, played in Croke Park. So, like, you know, I started in 2007 and all the way up to 2016, minus 1 year. So, like, you know, we didn't get that opportunity. So, like, obviously, you know, you'd love to have played there, but it is the way it falls. You just really can't really argue with the
it is an opportunity. It is a good opportunity for the current players to sort of experience it.
Massive. Now, there is a few players who have played because in 2013, I think it was, Stevie Bergen's age group, they played a minor final, you know, and that was the pre-drop before the Leinster final as well. But, like, you know, talking to people from Laois, the trains are booked out from Ballybrophy and Portlaoise. There'll be a massive crowd from Laois up early, and, like, in fairness, Wexford are playing Kilkenny, and it's kind of a 50-50 game. So both sets of fans are going to be in early because they want to make sure and get in, because it'll be a rip-roaring game. Two games should be rip-roaring games, and that's why, like, if you're a young fella, what more do you want to play in front of a crowd?
It's a great opportunity, Tommy. Like, it's great to have this to look forward to.
It's like, it's every young fella's dream to get to hurling Croke Park, you know, and apart from that, Neds, you have a minor game on Sunday as well, and the diehards from Kilkenny and Wexford will be in for that even, you know, so you'll have a huge crowd in by the time Laois and Westmeath throw in, so you will. And like I said to you, it's a huge opportunity for Laois. And people, I've heard the discussion going on about the second tier in football and all that. The Lowry Mar and the Christie Ring and the Nicky Rackard and the Joe McDonagh, it proves that if you hurl at your level for a year or two and improve, you will get to move up and dine at the next table, you know. And I think Laois have a massive opportunity to get back to where Laois hurling should be, basically, where we all, when we grew up in the 80s, me and Jack, Darren didn't, that's where I remember watching Laois and brilliant Laois teams getting robbed in Leinster finals and Leinster semi-finals, and, you know, and that's where Laois hurling should be, and there's no point in saying otherwise. And all the work that's going on in it, in the hurling clubs and that, is huge. And the proof of the pudding is it's not going on in Offaly, and they're where they are now, and it is happening in Laois, and it's happening in Westmeath, and it's happening in Carlow, and they're the three teams at the next level, say, in Leinster, and they're not very far off the top
they
level.
They're working from a small base, but they are sort of making
extremely
progress.
Small base, you know. 8 senior clubs in Laois, 8 senior clubs in Westmeath, 4 senior clubs in Carlow. Like, that's 20 senior clubs. There's twice that in Dublin alone, in the 3 counties. And I get on my hobby horse again, I talk about it. If they invested the amount of money in those 3 counties, and Offaly, those 4 counties, as they put into Dublin hurling, I can guarantee you they'd be every bit as good as Dublin.
Yeah, I think the figure that was bandied about Dublin, participation in hurling has essentially doubled since the money started going into hurling.
Of course it has. When you have full-time GDAs and in clubs, never mind in the county, of course it's going to happen. You know, and like those 4 counties that I mentioned, put the money into them, because there is a massive hurling fan base. There's a massive amount of people willing to do the work in those counties. And I'm lucky enough, I've been in 2 clubs here in Laois and I see what happens in them. I was in Carlow and I'm in Kilkenny all my life, and the work that goes on in Kilkenny is actually no better than what goes on in those other 2 counties. It's just that the numbers are greater, that's all.
And like, when Eddie Brennan was coming to Laois, I remember someone sort of saying that he's coming into a county, they're just as passionate about hurling in Laois as they are in Kilkenny, except there's not as many of us.
That's the problem. And you know, you talk about Dublin. I was involved there for about 12 years with underage squads in Laois, and we'd play Dublin we'd play Carlow and Offaly and Westmeath first, say in February, March, and then we'd play Dublin at under 14 level. But when you look at the 2 teams out in the field, the Dubs would look like minors. So there's more than money, you know. Yeah. They also are picking the cream of the crop. They also have the numbers, huge numbers, and they'd have a minor team going out, lads with trunks of legs on them, you know, built up, and they're not into the strength and conditioning yet. So you can't blame that. But the bottom, then turn it back to Laois, you'd have 3 big lads on the Laois team, you'd have 5 medium lads and 5 little lads, and that's how you're trying to compete. But it is all about.
Jack, my argument on that is, and I've always had this argument, and being involved with squads as well, if it's about the coaching and it's about the skill level, and if you perfect the skills, and I said this to you even when I was training you as adults, there are 5 basic skills in the game. If you can get absolutely perfect on all them and do them quicker than anyone else, there's a fair chance you're going to beat your opponent on any given day. So it's develop the skills, and it costs money to develop them though, and get coaches in. It does cost money. You need the resources.
Like, one of the things I would have noticed over the years was that a lot of teams we've played, that we'd have a few athletes in our teams, say with Laois teams, but they weren't necessarily the best hurlers, but there's pure athletes. Whereas we struggled then to get the balance between have all the skills perfectly right and being a complete athlete, whether it's power, pace, all that kind of stuff. Whereas you look at, say, Dublin's and Cork's or any other counties, they probably had more of a pick, so they can actually emphasise all the skills and the athletes kind of emerge already. Whereas we kind of have some lads who are just bigger fellas and they wouldn't be as athletic, but they might have all the skills.
You can turn a guy into an athlete, you can't turn him into a hurler. You know,
At senior level, you have to get
at adult level. So, you know, from 7, 8, 9, and that's where it starts. And the clubs in Laois do every bit as much as anyone else. It's just give them a bit more resources.
You talked about the Laois team of the 80s, you know, they were
the 80s and 90s, they were brilliant teams.
So competitive, you know, and we were in the Centenary final, and we were in Leinster finals, and we were in League semi-finals.
And Parry Corn.
But that all came. We were also in the lower tier just before that. George Lahi came in 79. Yeah. We won the All-Ireland B, which is a similar competition, in 77.
And it's exact same as now in that they were excluded from the Leinster Championship.
Right. We won it in 79. Now that year, Dublin were also a little bit lower because they were in the Kyo Cup. There was the Walsh Cup and the Kyo Cup starting off here.
That's right.
And we played them in the Kyo Cup in a draw match, and they beat us in a replay. That was the start. That was George Lahi's first day. Then we went and we won the All-Ireland B, but you weren't getting into Croke Park either. We played the final against London. We had played Kerry and Wicklow and Meath and Kildare, and we played London in the final in Tullamore, lucky to get away with a draw match. The replay was in Carlow. I think we were about 11 points down at half time. We made a raft of changes and came back and won it. But from winning that then, we went straight into the All-Ireland quarter-final. And we played Galway in Burr, packed to the rafters. And Galway beat us by 4 points. We beat ourselves. A couple of bad clearances ended up in the back of the net. And then Galway went on and played Cork. Galway were only this is the start of them. They played Cork.
They ended up in the All-Ireland that year.
They beat Cork on a terrible wet day in Cork.
Cork were going for 4 in a row.
Yeah, and then Kilkenny beat them.
With 2 soft goals.
Bad goalkeeping in the final. Yeah. So, but that was the start of our run then. Yeah. And then we were up competing, and we could compete with everyone.
But isn't that the hope then for this team, that if they emerge from Sunday as champions and they go into Leinster next year, and that you're hoping that they'll get on a run like that? You know,
it's 40 years ago. Like it's a very similar situation. Like you're after describing Laois after then beating the Westmeath, or after Ronald Westmeath beating Kerry and Antrim and Offaly this year and stepping it up a level. What chance do you give them on Sunday? Like Westmeath were in the final last year. They were narrowly beaten. They beat Laois. Like the last game that Laois played against Westmeath, is that totally irrelevant to Sunday's?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
I think it is. I think it is because Laois, had made 6 or 7 changes, and Westmeath were at half pelt as well, and they brought in a guy who didn't start and he scored 4 points. But I think it's going to be a totally different game. And as Eddie said the last day after the game, Westmeath were in the final last year, and that counts for something in Croke Park.
It's huge.
That's a massive, and they probably went in as probably favourites last year. Carlow beat them on the day, but they're back there now again. They're a fine hurling team in the full back. Tommy Dydla have one of the finest. I'd say at the minute he would just walk onto any team.
He's as good a full back as in the country. Moment, yeah. And the two Dials in the half hour line, Killian and Connor, is it? Kieran. Yeah, they're brilliant hurlers. Your man McNicholas sent full forward, they're grabbing in the corner.
McNicholas was half back last year. He's probably he's the oldest fella on the team.
He must be,
mid-30s.
Is he older than you there?
Oh, geez, that's not. I know it's not. It's hard to believe. Your man Inga Stark is one of the best hurlers.
Yeah, very good
He's
hurler.
a class centre back. Like so. It's like even your man Killian Dye, he got no score from play against Laois. Yeah. And after shooting the lights out, he got was it 2-4 he got from play against Offaly.
The only thing about him is in Croke Park, he could excel.
That's what I'm saying.
In the space.
That was his kind of off game, because he's been lighting up to Joe McDonagh. He's the top scorer by far. So it'll all come back down to how you talk about the occasion. Westmeath played there, because it'll be the easiest thing in the world. If things don't go well for Laois, I said it because they never experienced Croke Park. Yeah. And if it doesn't go well for Westmeath, Laois had the better opportunity because they rested a few players. Yeah. So hindsight is a great thing. Yeah. But from Laois' point of view, Mark Kavanagh's back. I don't see any long-term injuries. But Carter Healy probably is the only one who could have been involved. Ben Conroy is back, but it's just a small bit too early for him.
It's too early for him. Way too early. Yeah.
I think he's a big loss because he's a class hurler. But in terms of they didn't have him all year, so he's not as big.
He's not a loss in the immediate.
Well, I just looked at the Laois team from the last day, and I reckon the 6 to come back in, at least.
Paddy Purcell,
Donncha Hartnett, Willie Dunphy, Chad Dwyer, Ryan Mullaney.
Ryan Mullaney was a sub last year.
Yeah, it's amazing. But Westmeath last year, Westmeath beating Laois last year was the real sign that things weren't going right. It was the first game in the Joe McDonagh, and the wheels fell off after that, didn't they?
But you see, it's like any of the round robin, these new round robins. If you don't get a start, things can go really. Look at Offaly, look at Galway in the senior round robin. Potential All-Ireland champions gone.
And the rot set in the first day against Carlow.
And that can happen. But
apart from the Kerry game, Westmeath have been excellent. Their performances in every other game have been top class, and you just bring them down, or they bring themselves down a little, or we look at them coming down because of the way they hurled against Kerry. Yeah. But Kerry just caught them on the day, and I said they weren't expecting it.
Well, when Joe Quaid said it was shadow boxing, and he was describing the game, he's not going to say that about his players who were supposed to. If he told them to bust a gut to make this team, so if he's calling that as being shadow boxing, whereas Eddie Brennan said something slightly different. Eddie kind of said that it's hard to read too much into it, but his point of view was because he had made 5 or 6 changes, and he was looking at Westmeath, who probably weren't at full tilt.
But the thing about Eddie was what he'd done, and he mightn't have planned it, but the performance of some of the guys that came in would have definitely made training better the following Tuesday night. It had to have.
If you were number 19 in that panel, and you got maybe 5 or 10 minutes in the last couple of games, and this is a chance to play in Croke Park or a chance to play in a Joe McDonagh final. If you were going to start the exact same team there, you're automatically down, but at least you were given a chance.
Well, here's 2 guys who have. I imagine though on the Tuesday night after that the training match up here in O'Moore Park, that they would have cut lumps out of one another to make that team for Sunday.
Mark Kavanagh was, as you say, shooting the lights out in the first couple of games. He was injured then for the Kerry game, didn't play against Westmeath the last day. Picky Maher, who didn't play in the first couple of games, Neil Fyle didn't play. They're now back in the mix. There is decisions to be made on
and
the
apart
team.
From that, even there was Conor Phelan, who's been in and out and has done very well when he came in and out. He was outstanding the last day in the middle of the field. You had Colm Stapleton, who hadn't played a minute hurling this year.
No, but is a good hurler.
Was brilliant. So he ran out of steam. He put in such an effort. He actually ran out of steam.
There's 2 guys now. Donncha Hartnett didn't hurl the last day, right? And Neil Fyle got in to start. And if you put the 2 of them on training that Tuesday night on each other, you'd be saying to yourself, right, let them at it. Because one lad was saying, "Jeez, I need to get back in here." Another fellow was saying, "I'd like to stay here." And and that's what you're hoping for. That's what you're hoping for. That your training sessions then that week, not this week now, but last week would have been hell for leather. And I don't know. I'm not privy to it. None of us are probably. But you'd love to think that that's what happened after he changed the team around.
But the other side of it is in Croke Park now, and with the weather and the temperatures rising by the day, the 4 or 5 subs is going to be hugely important. But and the other problem I think that I suppose Eddie is every manager would love a 70 minutes performance, and this year he rarely has got it. He'll tell you himself the first half was sloppy or the second half was sloppy. And just one of those days, and you'd love to think it'd be Sunday that they could put 70 minutes together.
But the only thing about that is, and I know it's very hard to put 70 minutes together. Yeah. And the other thing about it is the trick there is that when it's not your purple patch, that you're just working so hard to prevent scores. If you get 5 points in your 10 minutes purple patch, they only get 3 in theirs, and that's it. Yeah, and you work so hard.
This game flow, like on Sunday, Laois could come blistering out with the blocks and get 1-3 in the first 10 minutes. But it won't be over wrapped up. Neither team.
None of that.
Yeah, no. It'll be after 60 minutes, there'll be one team will be a score or 2 up, and after that, it's just anything could happen. Darragh Clinton came on last week, 2 weeks ago.
4 points.
4 points in play. Yeah. I'm sure you were talking about Westmeath, or at least having their competitive. I'm sure Joe Quaid has them lads drilled in.
Two very high quality managers. Joe Quaid has a great pedigree as well. Would have played in a couple of All Irelands with Limerick. Could have been the Laois manager.
The man who went for the Laois job.
He was in the mix for the Laois job. Managed Kildare the last couple of years.
I know him well. He's a sound fella. But mad hurling, passionate, absolutely passionate.
Joe Quaid, I suppose, I worked in Limerick for 6 years and I'm familiar with the Limerick scene. Joe Quaid was coming up with the Keane Lynches and all those guys, under 14, under 16. Joe Quaid actually, there was a perception that Joe got shafted for the Limerick minor job when it came up.
He was,
and
4 years ago.
A guy came in, got them to 2 Munsters and maybe got to an All-Ireland minor final, an All-Ireland semi-final. And that was the Keane Lynches, the Darragh O'Donovans, the Pat Ryans, the Richie Englishes, all those guys. And Joe then, he sort of rebuilt his coaching career. He won an All-Ireland camogie with Limerick. And he was sort of persona non grata a bit in Limerick. He wasn't going to get jobs. And it's rebuilt it through the Kildare's Westmeath.
He'd be fairly straight talking.
Yeah.
So he would.
Yeah.
Not everyone. It doesn't suit everyone. So
he was in the mix for the Laois job when Eddie Brennan got it. So he was very sort of knowledgeable on this sort of grade of hurling. Who I suppose Darren
the only thing about Eddie is now, boys, don't forget Eddie doesn't have a good track record against Westmeath.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He will love me for saying that.
He's unbeaten as Laois manager over many years. So
he is.
I keep that one.
He's a class act. Eddie Brennan is a class act as a coach and as a man, he's a class act.
Well, he has a good backroom team. All the work coming from Niall Corcoran's very highly thought of, and you have one of the most passionate Laois men I ever heard of in Tommy Fitz and Fran Dowling as well. Excellent men. So it's all about the package. The figurehead is important, but it's the men that get around it.
Well, you see, there's only one boss, and when things go wrong, he has to be blamed.
And he is the boss.
Yeah, he
was very tough on Cha. When Cha got sent off against Dublin, Cha was made basically feel that he had let the team down. And look at him now, he's playing the best hurling he's played in the last 3-4 years.
Since
back to Cheddar,
and he has that quality, when he delivers on it.
See, he has the pedigree, and he can stand over it. Whereas if he was a younger manager or younger player that didn't have 8 or 9 All-Irelands, and many All-Irelands he has, he can stand over it. This is the best way to get the best out of these players. And Eddie Brennan was one of our heroes growing up. He
was a brilliant hurler, and as a man, and I know because I when he was involved with Kilkenny 21s, and I had a young lad on the panel, and he was so good to him, and he just the way he dealt with him as a young fella, he's a class act. But the other thing about him is Eddie has learned off some of the best coaches that, apart from Cody, we all know about Cody, but you go back to when he was a young fella in Kilmanagh in the school, he had Jim Nary was there. Jim Nary would have trained those guys from that age. One of the best coaches I've ever come across in my life. And that's where he would have started. So all those years of experience, even though he's a young manager, he is young in managing terms, he is the boss, and he's a brilliant
we hear sort of anecdotally he accepts no shit at all, does he, Jack?
That's the bottom line.
You can't.
I mean, what?
But I heard a guy come in and there was stories of what Eddie Brennan was doing, and someone rang us and he was sort of giving out about what Eddie Brennan was doing, and his advice to Eddie Brennan, to us over the phone, I don't think he rang Eddie at all, this is not Kilkenny. He was sort of like an acceptance that different standards.
Standards are standards.
But Eddie wasn't taking that.
No.
Like,
Yeah, but like what players got away with over the last 2 years
That's the big
was
difference.
was,
Players
was,
were
outra-
discussed it.
was outrageous.
Like they wanted this. Like the players wanted the standards to be set. Like to be honest, like no matter what, the players will set standards that you want, and if the players taper off, no matter if you bring Cody over it, the players have to live by standards. Eddie will give them the baseline.
He's
to
just a
set.
facilitator.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
And like that was the thing. But the players realised that they could push the boat out a small bit, because I think unfortunately Amy Kelly seemed to lose the dressing room maybe over the last couple
And
of
is that actually what happened?
That's what happened.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know players now. Don't you?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was
And when-
it was gone maybe half through the league. Just we'll see this year out. It felt like, and then they kind of gave a bit of a push towards championship, and they lost the first game. You talk about snowball effect, like like one of the best things we ever heard was about quicksand. That after going into a rut, you're trying your best to get out of it, whereas you're actually sinking further and further into it, and that's what happened. They just went into a malaise, and they end up like. Yeah.
What's the excitement like down in Ballycolly? You've 3 or 4 guys on the panel, like you're.
I'll be very, very strong. Like
Yeah.
it's especially like because they're all like just such lovely fellas. Like there's
Yeah.
4
So none
chaps.
of them were at the wedding last weekend.
No, they weren't. There were a couple of them invited, like, and if they were at that wedding, they wouldn't be able to play in Croke Park. And,
But there is a good buzz down in Ballycolly.
There is, yeah. Because the open night was on maybe last week, and like there was, a good few Ballycolly chaps were over there, and like the boys will be good now. Like it's hard as an inter-county player to go down and look at your own club training. But when they do, they come down, and sure, you see young guys walking around like, and they're just pointing out. There's Picky Mar and whatever.
That's what
sure,
they
they are
want,
the
yeah.
next. Like there's no like them young lads, whatever age they are. If they're 4 years of age, or 12 years of age, or 16 years of age, they look up.
They need a hero, don't they? They need a hero.
Like,
But I see the difference, Darren, now. When we started off in the league, when the match was over, and you see the young ones coming over looking for Eddie Brennan's autograph.
it's moving
now
on
you
to-
see them for the last 2 matches, and they're looking for the players' autographs.
Good. That's important.
That's
Yeah.
a change.
Yeah. Like the fans' night, as you were saying, Juliana, photographer, was in it, and she said like there was a great buzz at it. Like we're queuing up to get autographs off Paddy Purcell and Ross King and the different lads, and like that must give the players. It's not something you experience much as a Laois hurler.
We did it with Cheddar there, and I think it was a couple of times like over my career, but like. It was different because we were kind of like before championship, whereas this is before a final. It was a massive thing, like, and they had the little postcards printed out, and it said Joe McDonagh finalist 2019. Like they're going to play in Croke Park, they're going to play on the Leinster final day. Like it's amped up another level, and like that's the difference between like say when we were going to play Carlow in the preliminary Leinster Championship.
That's right.
It's not the same as going to play in a final.
No, it's a final.
You see it on a club level when clubs go down to intermediate or junior, and it's a bit of a blow to their ego when they go down in the first place. But then they get to a final, and this grade goes out of it. It's a final, it's a county final.
Finals are final. Look, we all want to play in a final. We all want to
Water
get to a
always finds
final.
its level. Do you know
But
what I mean?
I think
They were down there
also-
for a reason. And
Yeah.
like, let's be straight about like there's 5 teams in Munster, there's 4 teams in Leinster, and then you have Carlow, and then you have Laois Westmeath are going to be next year. Like that those 4 or 5 teams are going to come up and down from Joe McDonagh. You'd hope one of them could make a breakthrough.
That's what you're praying for.
That's the whole plan is, and like that's what like Laois want to do. To get up that level.
Just on that, would you not be? I think it's crazy. Watford won the same amount of matches in the championship this year as Carlow. None.
a better scoring difference.
Yeah. And like, where is this all going? Like, why couldn't there be a playoff between Watford and
That'd make
Carlow?
too much sense. You're talking sense.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, okay, fair enough.
But like a playoff, like a playoff would make, as you said, plenty of sense. But it would be only fair as well. And there could be an odd year where a Carlow or a Laois could finish in the top 3 or 4.
Well, this year would have been one of them, Stephen.
And
I think Carlow would have beaten Watford this year.
well,
No.
but there's a chance though. There's also a chance that
I
the
do.
Carlow or Laois don't finish bottom. And if you have a Waterford against the Wexford or
Galway.
Say for example, if Carlow bet Dublin and Dublin were going to be say in relegation, the GAA wouldn't allow Dublin to go down.
No, you
Do
haven't.
you know, like that's
Well,
the
you'd
difference.
wonder anyway,
And the same
wouldn't you?
thing,
Yeah.
if Carlow bet Waterford and this possibly, there's no way that Waterford hurling would allow them to go down to Joe McDonagh. No hope in hell. Like Offaly went down, kicked up a small bit of fuss. We shouldn't be down here, and we'll come straight back up. And like it can go the opposite way.
Yeah.
Like
And the other side of it is, no matter how well Kerry do, they're not going to get into the Munster Championship.
that's the unfair part.
You know.
I think if Kerry win, they should go automatically win. You know what I mean? Like there's no playoff. There's no playoff for Laois or Westmeath against Carlow. So you're making up the rules as you go along.
Well, it's completely
It's a little
unfair
bit-
that there are different
yeah.
rules for different
Yeah,
teams in the
yeah,
same
yeah,
competition.
yeah.
But look, eventually, it's going to have to come in GAA. They're going to have to realise it has to be, say, like groups. The football is crying out for the last few years that you'll have maybe your top 16 teams, Champions League style. And I think hurling are going to have to go the same. You can play your provincial championships, play your Leinster championships, and then the All-Ireland series starts.
But
you
like
know.
the thing in Munster, like the Munster Hurling Championship is like fabled and it's so sort of celebrated in that. But the champions of the last 10 years have never, only one occasion, the last 12 or 13 years, Tipperary in 2016, have they ended up as the best Munster team. So the Munster champions have never ended up as the best Munster team.
Look,
like,
things evolve and things change, and there's an awful lot of bullshit attached to the Munster Championship that we never went on with in Leinster. And some of the best games are played in, and this year's championship has been far better in Leinster than Munster so far. And if you want to go back over the last,
and there's been a lot of bad games
years
in Munster. There's this perception that every game in Munster is a cracker.
It's not.
Yeah,
it's
not
not
knockout for them. You know, like for
in Leinster you can end up at the bottom of the table.
Yeah,
and
there's four teams in Carlow kind of slightly below that level. They were perform admirably, but there's four of them going for 3 places. Whereas it became fairly clear after the first couple of games that Waterford were a good bit down, and then there was a couple of better games towards the end. But Clare kind of really let themselves down. I suppose they'd be very
against Tip especially.
you know, they didn't really do that well in terms of they should have actually.
But like I often argue as well that the provincial structures deny as many good games as they give you. The provincial Kilkenny Clare, the provincial like Galway Cork, the Wexford or the Waterford.
It's going back to what Darren said a few minutes ago. If you could get Carlow and Laois and Westmeath, for instance, into the top tier, and have 3 teams of 4, Champions League style, home and away, right? Where you're going down to Páirc Uí Chaoimh with Kilkenny, say, or you're going to Cusack Park, or Laois, or going up to Pearse Stadium, you know, or down to Waterford, say, down to Walsh Park. You play Laois and Waterford tomorrow in a championship match in Walsh Park, you'll put the 11,000 people in it like that, you know, and that's nearly where it needs to go.
I suppose we're getting it slightly away. Who is the Laois player, Tommy, that has to absolutely perform to his best on Sunday for Laois to win?
About 17 of them, I'd say, but maybe 18. Who has to perform? Matthew Whelan is vital at fullback, and it's vital that he has a good game. We talked about McNicholas earlier. I know he's not young anymore, but he's a shocking experienced hurler, brilliant stick hurler. He has to be held. He doesn't score that much, but he creates an awful lot around him. So he does. Matthew is vital to them. I presume Ryan Mullaney will be back in at 6. Yeah. So there's your spine.
Yeah,
if you can stop,
physical,
and if those two are on top of their game, you're less likely to concede goals, right? And for me, and I presume he'll start as well, it's a huge day for Chad Dwyer. Absolutely huge day. I know him since he was about 7 because he went to school with my own eldest fella, and it's a massive day for him. And if he can produce it up front and create space for the guys around him, because the likes of young Aaron Dunphy and these guys will get scores, especially in Croke Park where the space is created for. But there's your spine really, you know. Depends on who they play at full as well. You know, like Tommy Doyle is brilliant for Westmeath at full back, so who do you throw in on top of him? My option would be Cha, and put 1 or 2 in high early on and see.
Neil Foyle had his best game for Laois, I'd say, in 5 or 6 years.
But Neil Foyle,
the second last day. Yeah.
Like, is there 70 minutes in Neil Foyle in Croke Park? You know, that's another. Or would he be the ideal impact sub? Would he be? I don't know. You know, he could be the ideal impact sub though. He could be.
One guy who has sort of come back in and has had a good impact is Ross King. He missed the winter and is back in. It's good to see him back and
back in, but still not sparkling. I think he missed that couple of months, which is a drawback to him. So the starting team will be very interesting. Where does Lee Clear come in? He has to come in somewhere.
Does he come in though?
I think he is, yeah. Well,
do you think
I think he has to come in.
It sounds like he's going in cornerback.
Looks like he's going in cornerback, so someone in that area is going to lose out, you know. The starting 15, if Mark Kavanagh's back and fully fit, he has to start. Yeah. Who loses out there?
He's great at the stuff.
You know. Yeah. Oh, he's like some of his games this year. People would have thought of him as being maybe just a free taker, but there was the Limerick game, and I watched him up here in the challenge game against Tipperary.
But there's another guy
who put his head in where you wouldn't put the hurl. You know.
Another guy who has come back to form, and people are giving Eddie Brennan some of the credit for it, but it's Picky. Yeah. You know, and Croke Park might just suit Picky Marr.
Yeah, but the likes of Picky
Picky got 4 points against Westmeath last day and didn't play absolutely brilliant. That's the kind of standard he set for himself because he's so talented. Yeah. Like we parent him a brush that's a bit unfair to him because we're expecting him to win everything that comes in his square.
No player does that.
And you're kind of expecting him to be at TJ Reid's level, which is like there's not many who've ever been at TJ Reid's level. But like Picky, You talk about the size of Croke Park. The lads were up there last weekend, and like it was 90 metres wide. Like I couldn't book a ball 90 metres, you know. Like, and they were going to have.
Oh, you're right there.
You know, like 2 pucks I wouldn't get there. Like it's phenomenally wide. Like it's a level that, like, you know, the players who want space, they're going to be able to find it.
Yeah.
You know, a bit easier than they will even in the Moore Park, which is a big size pitch.
Yeah.
Least to win, Darren.
Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah.
Oh, I think so. Yeah. 3 or 4 points.
Are you being a bit overconfident in that now?
No, and I'm just basing it on the rate of improvement, we'll say, since January, since the league started. There has been an upward graph the whole way, and what sort of seeds it for me is go back to the previous day. I know it was shadow boxing, that's what Joe Quayle called it. It was shadow boxing to an extent, but Westmeath might have 2 to come back in off that. Laois will have 6, maybe 7.
Now, only
right?
Price is meant to be back.
Oh, right, is he? Yeah.
I was talking him being back. Now he's same age as me, and he's a class act. You know,
brilliant.
now how fit he is, I'm not too sure, and he hasn't really featured all year. But like, he's one of the best hurlers Westmeath have ever produced. Do you know? So like, depends if he's going. He could be a big addition if he's flying it. Do you know?
The only thing that would get you to back against Laois is Westmeath. Yeah, sometimes you might have to lose one to win one.
Yeah,
you know, you might have to. That's an old saying. But the other thing about it is, it's an upward graph since the beginning of the year, and this is their absolute. This was their
All-Ireland.
This was their All-Ireland as such, and this was their goal. I'd imagine when the goals were set early in the year, this was the main goal, was to win this, and they're nearly there now. I'd say 3 or 4.
Paddy Power has a handicap of 3 points.
Okay.
I think I'd measure Laois though, really. The game that I really was impressed with was the Kerry game.
When they got 5
we had
goals.
to go down
and
you had to win,
results.
and they won. Kerry
5
beat
goals.
Westmeath, Kerry beat Offaly.
Kerry beat Laois last year.
Kerry beat Laois last year, and when the chips were down, we did the business. And lads stood up that day when we were short a few lads as well. It's going to be a tough one. Take none for granted, but I think we'll be 3 or 4 points better team in the finish.
Well, hopefully you're right in that. Laois hurlers, as Darren pointed out earlier, haven't played in Croke Park since 2005. They haven't played in a final in Croke Park since 1985. You referenced that Leinster final previously, and they haven't won a championship trophy in Croke Park since 1949.
Okay, but Westmeath have only played there once.
I've played a couple of Joe McDonagh finals or Christy Ring finals. And
Christy Ring finals, 3
so
years
what
ago,
I'm saying is it is a big occasion for the Laois hurling public, for Laois as a GA county, and I suppose we just want to wish Laois well. It's an experience to be savoured and hopefully enjoyed. I want to thank Darren, Ballycollan man and former Laois hurler Tommy Buggy of Buggy Property Partners. If you're buying, selling or renting, Tommy will look after you.
No problem. Absolutely no problem.
And Jack Nolan, you can listen to Jack and Darren. I believe you're on Midlands commentary on Sunday. Jack will sell you flags or keys or anything in the shop on Sunday. And we want to thank Joe McDonagh Motors here in Port Laois for the use of their premises for today's preview show. We, of course, in Laois Today are proud ambassadors for Joe McDonagh Motors. We'll be going to Croke Park. If you see us on the way, give us a beep, and we're going to have we're no stone unturned in our coverage on Laois Today and lead up to the final and in Croke Park. So I want to thank Anthony and Stephen Butler. Stephen Butler is a good hurling man here in Joe McDonagh Motors, and he'll look after you if you come in. I also want to thank our match coverage sponsors, our Patio's Granola and Patio Cereals from Cullehill, so heart of hurling country there as well. So from myself, Darren, Tommy and Jack, thank you very much.